There was a bar in my neighborhood, maybe a little over a half a mile down the road. Everyone from around town went there, and there was a great odds you'd run into somebody that you knew if you went. I was never a big drinker, but I liked the social aspect of going there. Of course, me along with some other people have some good memories of being there. However, some of the worst memories of my life also took place at this bar. This goes back a few years by now to a Friday night. Several of my friends went down to the bar, and I met them after I got off of work. All of my friends liked to drink a lot more than I did, but I had my own reasons that I didn't. I had family members in my life struggle with alcohol addiction, and it scared me sometimes when I drank. Anyways, I got to the bar that night at around 9 o'clock. It was very busy, like it usually was, especially on Friday nights. There was music playing, and everybody seemed to be having a good time. I spotted my friends near the corner of the bar, and I walked over. They had Jack in the Box food in front of them, and I was hungry. So I took a couple of tacos and a milkshake, and I started eating. For the next couple of hours, me and my friends talked and had a really good time. I was slightly buzzed, but nothing near drunk. At about 11, one of my friends suggested we go over to his apartment, which was not far away. He had a place that was close enough to walk, but we still always drove. I told him that I wanted to finish my drink, and he said, okay. Then they all got their last drink, but when I was about halfway done with mine, they were already finished. My friends then pressured me to finish my drink fast, and I started to get annoyed. So I just told them that I'd be there in a little bit, and they should go ahead and leave. I would finish my drink, and then be on my way. I just kind of wanted them to leave me alone, and I probably would have changed my mind and gone back home instead of to his place. When they left, I noticed how the bar had gotten quite a bit less busy. It was nearing midnight by that time. I continued drinking my drink and listening to the music play. I would always use the water fountain in the back of the bar late at night after drinking so that I didn't feel as bad in the morning. It's a good tip too. If you need to go to the bathroom from drinking, just drink a whole bunch of water. Then you can make a trip to the bathroom and you usually feel a lot better. The water is what causes the hangover. I still do that to this day. When I was done with my drink, I walked to the back of the bar alone and took several drinks from the water fountain. Then I returned to my spot. When I was back, I was about to leave, but I was approached by a man who I had seen there several times before. He walked up to me with a drink in his hand. I could tell that he was very drunk. This guy was one of those people that you would see at the bar just way too often, and the one that you seemed to see every time you were there. He looked to be like 50 years old, and he had extremely white hair. He was also a little bit overweight. I had only described him here in my past experiences with him because he was memorable. Sometimes he would be really friendly and outgoing to random people at the bar, and other times he was more quiet and just sat in the corner. But I also knew that he could get angry and he yelled at people sometimes. I had never talked to the man before now. I really wanted to just leave, but it would have been rude to just leave when he approached me. I also didn't know what he wanted. He got up close to me and then all of a sudden accused me of stealing his phone. I was shocked and had no idea why he would be saying this. I asked the man what he was talking about, and then he started rambling and kept saying that I had stolen his phone tonight. I then told the man that I had no idea what he was talking about, and I did not take his phone. The man sort of saw things, and then I walked away. In my mind, he was just some crazy drunk guy and would probably forget about the phone when he eventually found it tomorrow. When I left the bar, it was like a slap to the face how much colder it was outside. I had parked about 6 spots down the road from the actual property of the bar. I got out of the parking lot and was starting to make the short walk down the road to my car, but as I was walking, I heard a yell from behind me. It startled me, and I looked back and saw the guy coming after me fast. I then started running over to my car. When I got close to my car, I reached down for my keys. In my drunk state, I hadn't grabbed them yet. The man got a little bit closer to me, and I was just lucky he was drunk and slow, otherwise he would have been caught up to me. When I got my keys in my hand, I began pressing the button on it to unlock my car. I did it several times, but my car would not unlock. At the time, I had an old car that only unlocked from some angles, and you really had to be close for it to work, but I was pressing it constantly. Then, the white haired guy was about 20 feet from me. It finally worked. I opened my door, and I got in just in time, and then I closed the door. When I locked the doors, the man jumped and tried to open the side door. I had to slam it shut. He then started pounding on my doors and windows, so I didn't waste any time pulling away from there. We were on the side of the road, so I drove away fast and left the guy behind. But after I drove away, I realized I was in no condition to drive at all, and I was lucky that I made it even down the road. So I pulled off into a Walmart parking lot and sat there for a while until I felt better. It took about 15 minutes, and then I drove over to my friend's place. After that, I told him why it took so long for me to get there. I kept seeing the man from the bar act crazy around town. I'm still not quite sure what was wrong with him, but he clearly needed help. He would later be barred from entering the bar about 2 years later. If you like our stories, please subscribe and hit the like button. It really helps us keep going. Back in 2010, I was a senior in college, and since my brother is 2 years older than me and went to the same college, I pledged the same fraternity as him. After 3 years, I was pretty well known in our college by both sorority girls and strangers alike. This story takes place in February of 2010 in the middle of a snowstorm. There was this bar that basically only college students went to, and I did some promoting on the side, and sometimes was able to get people to come to that bar in return for a piece of the cover charges that night. I was trying to bring out as many people as possible because I kind of wanted to impress the girl I was seeing. Nobody could get in without one of my stamps giving me leverage. I only ended up getting about 20 people to show up, including the girl Vanessa and her friends. But with the snowstorm, there weren't that many people who were willing to come in the first place. Now, one thing about this bar that always tickled me a bit, the place was huge, but there was only one area to get drinks granted with the stairs included. The place was 3 floors large, but there was that one bar on the bottom floor by midnight. The ground floor would be completely packed and messy and impossible to move. At the same time, I was getting a little tipsy and wanted nothing more than to dance with Vanessa. At that point, I don't know how much time passed before I noticed Vanessa seemed to be more flirty with my friend Derek than with me. I walked up to the two of them, kind of stumbling over on my way. I remember I asked Vanessa to dance with me, and she said she was tired. I then told Derek to remember who I brought over. That night, Vanessa was supposed to be my hookup for the night, so when it seemed he was moving in on me, I was a little annoyed Derek, and I got into a verbal fight. He kept saying I was too drunk and to relax, but I kept repeating the same thing over and over. Remember, I brought her over, and things eventually got awkward, and I walked away before I was about to lose my cool on him and make a scene. I sat down on a couch, and one of my friends, Rob, sat next to me. I angrily punched the cushion about 5 times, yelling curse words as I did. For whatever reason, I was really pissed off, especially now that I was probably losing Vanessa to a friend of all people. I punched the couch about 5 more times until I noticed that one of the punches hit something hard. I thrust my hand into the crack of the couch to find what it was. I just hit. I pulled out an old, rough, silver-printed digital camera. My first thought was to keep it, but that decision was short-lived, as I realized somebody at this party might have lost it. There was nothing to do with it now, since I wasn't going back into that mess, so I just put it in my pocket. My mind was too out of it, and I wanted to leave, and for a while I did. I hit up an off-campus bar that my brother worked at. I got a few more drinks for the rest of the night, and then took a cab back to my dorm. My head was still spinning. I sat down at my desk, just staring into deep space. However, my eyes just so happened to glance over at the camera. Touching it brought me back to reality for a bit. My curiosity got the better of me. Once again, I turned the thing on, and surprisingly, there was still some battery left. I hit the preview button to reveal something disturbing pictures of girls dancing and drinking, as well as some really deep, dark, and edited looking pictures of the exterior of the bar. That was enough for me to justify calling up the bar. I somehow still knew their phone number. In my condition, after I called, I asked for a manager or supervisor, and I reported the camera that I found. Then I hung up before they could respond. Their response was something annoying that I wasn't in the mood to hear at the time. I didn't look at another picture ever since I saw those weird pictures, and I didn't want to. That same night was actually the only night of my life that I experienced sleep paralysis. First, I remember having a dream that I was in the basement of some kind of huge abandoned building or shed. My depressed state of mind was present in the dream too. I just felt hopeless in this dark, cold storage facility. I felt like a helpless puppy sitting on the cold floor up against the wall. After a while, I heard footsteps. I looked around to see a deranged looking woman scrounged over the floor looking for something. I couldn't see much, but I had the vision that she was looking for me. Then I woke up, and that was when the paralysis hit me. Nobody was in the dorm at the time. My roommate wasn't home, so when I saw the dream woman walking towards the end of my bed from out of the corner, it wasn't my roommate. I was barely able to make out what she appeared to look like before waking up and snapping out of it. The sight of the woman would have been center featured in any person's worst nightmares, but that didn't matter in the moment. My number one feeling was the need to fall back asleep, and that I did. I fell right back to sleep, feeling safe. Now that I was fully conscious, that dream still sends a chill down my spine. When I woke up, I remembered all the drama from last night. I wondered if Vanessa knew about my argument with Derek, but I wasn't about to ask her myself. I was honestly still feeling sick from all the alcohol. When I subconsciously gazed over to the camera sitting on my desk, I decided to pick it up again and look through the rest of the pictures. There were literally 100 or more pictures, mostly of girls at parties, but some of a creepy looking deserted warehouse building, and some pictures were really dark, taken somewhere inside, and I couldn't tell what was in the picture. At some point, I had seen enough. I popped out the SD card from the camera and simply snapped it in half and threw the pieces in the trash. Then, the next day, I remembered my call to the manager at the bar. I decided to actually call them back and make a report to them or the police about the pictures of the exterior of the bar. I don't know what I thought would come of it, but I guess it was just the right thing to do. I called and got a bouncer. They put me on hold for a minute until finally some woman picked up in an angered tone. She told me they told me to wait for a supervisor to pick up. I was confused and said, "Wait, I thought you were the supervisor." Then she said, "Leave me alone, you little creep," and hung up. I called back literally immediately, but somebody let it beep a whopping 50 times. Before I hung up myself, I still kept the phone number in my phone for a while and checked if anybody else at the school might have had the number as well. And oddly enough, a sophomore had the number. I hit him up and asked why he had the number, but he said he didn't know. Like, actually, he had no idea how it got in his contacts list or whose number it was. It's still just a small mystery that I don't quite understand. I used to work as a bartender at this place in NJ with my friends Brett and Dalton, who are also bartenders. For some time, we would usually get off work very late at night, just about every Friday and Saturday, especially in the summer. The reason they worked this job was because the pay was so great, and the customers were always generous tippers. So when they got out of work, though, they were pretty sick of drunk people, and they always went out for a couple of drinks of their own. The best part was that they didn't have to get up early because they both worked again late every evening, but especially Brett, he was not the best sleeper. For him to be up even later would usually be fine, and Brett was the bigger drinker of the two most of the time. Anyways, since their place was only a few blocks away from where they worked, they would usually go back to their house, then go out from there. I was still in college at the time, and so on several times when I was still up, I would join them. Sometimes I would join them when they didn't have work the next day and they were going out a little earlier than usual. We would typically go to the same bar that was only like a 10-minute walk away from our apartment called Stumpy's. One night, they got out of work as late as possible for this story. They worked at another place in the summer. This was a few years back. I'm pretty sure they got out of work at about 3 a.m. and it hit bore 30 by the time they went out. And so I decided to stay home, but they managed to find a bar that was still open and headed there. I was still up playing video games in my room. It was probably only 5 or 10 minutes after they left when I got a text message from Brett. The message said, "Dude, this bar is super ghetto." There was no follow up message. I didn't really respond at first. I had no idea that the text would be as serious as it ended up being. I think he said it because a lot of the bars in the area were not so great, and they would end up reflecting it in Yelp reviews anyways. About 15 more minutes would go by before I got another text message. This random number texted me a photo of Brett and Dalton. They were sitting down, drinking, and the picture didn't look like they were inside of a bar. It looked like they were inside of somebody's house. When I got the message, I was super confused. Plus, the number that it came from was a Michigan area code. The apartment we had was in Jersey. I texted the number back asking who it was, and I didn't get a response back for several minutes. Finally, they responded and just said, "You should come over to." My text messages at this time were in a blue box, which probably meant that the person had an iPhone as well as me. I responded to the text asking who it was, but at the same time, I decided to call Brett. A second later, my phone call came to an abrupt stop. Another call was coming in, and when I looked on the screen, I saw that it was the same Michigan area code phone number that had texted me. I stopped calling Brett, as weird as I felt about it, and I picked up the phone call. I said hello a couple of times, but nobody seemed to be there. However, after maybe 10 seconds, I heard a really weird interference sound that I'd never heard before on the phone. The frequency was so high pitched, it caused me to hang up the phone pretty much right away. Then I tried calling Brett a second time. This time he answered the phone after 2 or 3 rings, but also, when I picked it up, I couldn't hear a thing. I said hello several times. I was starting to get really worried. Now I called Dalton next, and he didn't pick up. That's when I decided that I needed to go over to this place. I had no idea where it even was, but I could tell that it was really important for me to find out. I really did not want to go out, though it was past 4 a.m., and also, I had been playing video games for hours, but I got off, went downstairs, and left. I knew where Stumpy's was, but I had no idea where they were. After that, if I had to guess, it was probably 3 or 4 blocks away. I left my apartment and walked really fast. I actually tried to use the Find My iPhone app to track Brett or Dalton, but I wasn't connected to their phones. I was practically running down the streets. It was rather hot, humid, and was not the greatest part of town either, but it did not take me very long at all before I saw them. As I was running down the sidewalk, I was in front of the Stonegate Apartments, but then I made it to see more a couple of blocks down. This man was standing there. He was holding a drink in his hand and sort of walking back and forth. I kept on running, but when he saw me, I also saw Brett and Dalton. They were together, and it looked like they were walking quickly across the outside area. Brett was on the other side. It appeared that they were leaving this apartment complex. I was still a little bit away, but I saw the man holding the drink approach them. At first, he was just walking slowly, but by the time I got there, he was chasing after them. It was clear to me that my friends were really trying to get away. I heard him yelling things at them, but I couldn't quite make out what it was. Then I ran even faster. I yelled out like a maniac to the guy, "What are you doing?" I remember that. He turned back and gave me a really messed up look. He must have been super drunk. And then he went after them. I finally got over to where Brett and Dalton were. Once I got there, the guy was like 20 FT away at this point. He was not chasing after them any longer. We ran about a block down, and once we were far enough away, the guy didn't follow us. I asked them what had happened. They told me that they went to a bar, and once it closed, one of the guys told them that he would give them a free ride home. Brett and Dalton declined, but the guy would not give it up and kept insisting that he would drive them home. Finally, they agreed. They thought he was just a nice guy who had been drinking at the bar. It turns out that he worked as a bouncer there. When they got in his car, he drove them to the apartment complex and offered them to go inside and drink some more, and that the bar closed too soon. Once again, they declined at first, but he convinced them that it would be a good idea, and he had expensive alcohol inside once. Inside, though, he started acting weird, and they were there for about 20 minutes. He finally got up to use the bathroom, and Dalton used it as a chance for them to leave. I think the reason why he couldn't speak right when I called him was because things were too awkward where they were. I'm not sure how that guy got his area code to call me from either, but I am pretty sure that it was me that he called. Maybe he was looking on one of my friend's phones for phone numbers later on. Dalton said he didn't understand why he didn't just go outside and call me after running away, but at the time, he wasn't really sure what to do, and they mostly just wanted to get away from that super creepy apartment complex with that guy.